The time has come. We cannot ignore his name any longer. We're going to be talking about Chris Watts, unfortunately. When I talk about these, I like genuinely picture myself sitting with all of you in the living room, like we're just sitting there chatting it up. I like genuinely feel like I'm having a conversation with you guys. I have to keep my hands right here still because I get adrenaline. I'm not joking. My heart is beating fast as we speak. I find it silly when you guys comment I'm sat in my comments because I'm sat. I'm ready for our FaceTime call. Let's go. Christopher Watts. The case is also commonly referred to as the Watts family. This happened in 2018 in Colorado. Christopher killed his entire family. The details on this are truly shocking, devastating. It's a case that truly shocked the entire world. Christopher was married to Shanann Watts. They were both originally from North Carolina, but they lived in Colorado. They met in 2010. Chris sent Shanann a friend request on Facebook. She accepted, and by November 2012, they were married. By 2013, they had bought and moved into a 5-bedroom home. December 17th, 2013, they had their first daughter named Bella. Less than 2 years later, in July 17th, they had their second daughter named Cece. Her name was Celeste, but they called her Cece. Shanann was described as a loving mom, a loving wife. She was a hard worker, a kind friend, and was so in love with her husband, Chris. At the time, she worked from home for a marketing company. She was very, very active on social media. She kind of did like vlog style videos of her lifestyle. She would share a lot of her life and a lot of her husband and her kids. Like those videos that she uploaded of herself and of her children made it that much more shocking to the people looking in and seeing her life after the fact, because we got to see what kind of personality she had, how she was with her kids, and how much of a loving mother she really was. So to know what happened and the details that come with it, truly shocking, disgusting, devastating, all of the above. At the time that her and Chris met, she was at a low point in her life. She was losing a lot of friends. She had just gotten in a really bad car accident and got diagnosed with a bad health condition. I'm pretty sure it was lupus. So when Chris came along, she was over the moon, quickly fell in love with him, and described him as the best thing that has ever happened to her. She talked so highly of Chris. She was so in love with their love at first. She truly felt like the luckiest girl in the world. They quickly became this picture perfect family. From the outside looking in, they really looked like they were a beautiful family, and maybe at one point they were. June 11th, 2018, Shanann records a video of her surprising Chris with a pregnancy announcement. This would be their third child. His reaction, weird. He does this like awkward laugh and goes, that's awesome. Shanann is so excited to be pregnant again. It's posting it all over her social media, updates on the pregnancy, her ultrasounds, and saying that Chris is the best dad the girls could ask for. August 13th, 2018. At this point, Shanann is 34 years old. Unborn baby, they named him Nico. Bella was 4 and Cece was 3. Shanann had been traveling for work that weekend. She gets dropped off by her friend Nicole at 1:48 in the morning. That next morning, Shanann missed a doctor's appointment at 9 in the morning, and her friends immediately grew concerned. By 11:55 that morning, Nicole, the friend that had previously dropped her off the night before, goes over to her house to make sure that she's okay. Nicole was especially concerned because Shanann was pregnant and she had not been feeling well the weekend prior. She sees her car in the garage, but no one's coming to the door, so she ends up calling the police to do a wellness check. When the cops get there, she briefly mentions that Shanann had talked about some marital issues between her and Chris. Cops call Chris to ask him if he knows anything about where she is. He says no, but he says he'll be home in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, he's home. He lets the cops and Nicole go inside. Walking through the house, and in body cam footage, you can see Nicole is visibly stressed. She's really worried about her friend, especially when they find her cell phone, ID, and wallet in there. Chris, on the other hand, his behavior is weird. He's looking down a lot. He looks stressed, but almost like he's trying to fake it and doing a really bad job at it. The cops ask Chris if they've been having marital issues. Chris says they're going through a separation, but they're in the very beginning stages of it. They haven't filed for divorce. They're just starting the process. He then says they had a little argument in the morning. He went to work around 5:15 a.m. and he has not seen her since. Still walking through, they walk into Shanann and Chris's bedroom and they notice the bed is stripped. The fitted sheet is nowhere to be found. Chris's explanation to that is that Shanann was just washing the sheets. A detective meets them at the house to kind of help with the search. They speak to a neighbor that has security camera footage from his house that points to the Watts family household. In the footage, the only person you see leaving the house is Chris. There's, I think, more than one documentary about this, by the way, and all of this is in there, so I will put a picture of it on the screen. The footage of Chris, when they're going through this security camera footage, I mean, he should have just pled guilty right then and there. He is acting whack. He looks so nervous. He can't stand still. He's looking down, holding his arms above his head. You can see the anxiety pouring out of him. They go through the footage. Chris then steps out of the house. The neighbor stays in the house talking to the officer. Soon as Chris steps out, the neighbor looks at the officer and says, he's not acting right at all. He's acting really fidgety. He doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks. August 14th, one day after Shanann and the girls had been reported missing. The FBI gets involved. They begin the first search of the home. Meanwhile, Chris does his first TV interview. We are just just weird. He says they vanished. He doesn't know anything. He hopes that if someone knows something, they come forward. Says that if somebody has her, please bring her back, that this house is not complete without them. And throughout some of these interviews, it looks like he's smiling and almost laughing. That evening, he's taken to the police station to do his first formal interview. He's sticking to his story, saying he doesn't know anything. However, when he's talking about the girls and Shanann, he's referring to them in past tense, saying things such as, she loved these shoes, she loved this dress, she was a girly girl. A bit suspicious. He says he's getting worried now. He's beginning to think that someone may have taken them, but that if someone did take them, it had to be someone that they know, because there was no sign of anyone forcing an entry into the home. Cops are trying to get more information out of him about his marriage problems, and he just says, I would never cheat on my wife. What Christopher fails to know is that while he's being interviewed, the cops have already figured out that he has been having an affair. Investigators have found email evidence of Chris having an affair with his coworker, Nicole Kessinger. I think that's how you say her last name. And Nicole was actually being questioned at the exact same time. And I can make a whole video about what Nicole does and doesn't know. She ends up lying to the police. She's a whole mess herself, to be honest. Nicole claims that Chris told her he was separated and almost done with the divorce. She says it wasn't until after the disappearance that she figured out that Chris was lying and that Shanann was pregnant. Moving on to the next day, August 15th, 2018. Chris goes to the police station that morning to take a polygraph test. His dad has also flown into Colorado to support his son. If I'm not mistaken, a polygraph test is considered failed if it's -4 or below. Christopher gets a -18. He fails miserably. They sit him down and tell him it was completely clear that you were not honest during this test, so now it's time to talk about what really happened. And Chris says, I didn't lie, I promise. They kind of switch the tactic and they say, Chris, you are in here today lying about something else. And immediately he says, I cheated on her. And they say, I know. He says Shanann accused him of it. He denied her and he felt horrible because she was pregnant, still using past tense. Investigators eventually decide to bring Chris's dad in and leave them to talk alone in the room in hopes that he would confess to his father, someone that he trusts. This is all recorded, by the way, so definitely look up those videos after this. The dad comes in, sits down. He says, do you want to tell me about what's going on? Chris is almost whispering. He's being so silent, and he says, I don't want to protect her, referring to Shanann. The dad says, you don't want to protect her? Did she hurt them? And Chris very quietly says, yeah, and then pauses and says, and then I killed her. His father says, what now? And Chris says, I hurt her. He says that Shanann killed both Cece and Bella, that she strangled them to death, and that in a rage, he killed his pregnant wife and got rid of the bodies because he freaked out and didn't know what to do. The poor dad, this is the little girl's grandfather, and he's sitting there listening to him confess that they are dead and that he killed the wife. Investigators come back into the room eventually, and this is the first time that Chris shed some tears. First time he's cried in this whole entire time. I don't know if he was crying real tears, but this is the first time that he was looking like it. Now the priority is to find the bodies. Where are the bodies? Chris says the bodies are in the oil field where he worked. They're flying drone cameras over the oil field, and you can see on the ground the fitted sheet that was missing from their bedroom. At the stations, the investigators put a picture in front of Chris, the drone picture of the oil field. They ask him to mark where the bodies are. He marks an S for Shanann out in the grass, a B for Bella in one oil tank, and a C for Cece in the other oil tank. Chris Watts had put his 3- and 4-year-old daughter's bodies inside of these oil tanks, massive tanks filled with oil, water, and a lot of toxic fumes. He was finally arrested that same day. Within 2 weeks, as part of a plea deal in exchange to not seek the death penalty, Chris Watts finally confessed to killing both of his daughters. Now let's talk about what really happened that night. The night before Shanann came home from her trip, Chris tucked the girls in around 7:45 p.m. He then spent almost 2 hours on the phone with his girlfriend Nicole. We know Shanann came home that night at 1:48 in the morning. That next morning, and I didn't know this detail until I was just looking it up again, Chris went to each of his daughters' rooms and smothered them with pillows until he thought they were dead. Then goes back into the bedroom, starts arguing with Shanann, strangles her. He later says he thought about stopping. When his hands were around her neck, he thought about stopping, but he knew if he stopped, she would still prevent him from being with his girlfriend. Her eyes filled with blood, and he just stared at her until the life left her body. He started wrapping up her body in the sheets when his 2 little daughters came walking in the room. He didn't know how it was possible. He thought that he had already killed them. He said Bella kept asking what's wrong with with mommy, and then both girls started crying. He dragged Shanann's body downstairs and into the truck and then asked his 2 little daughters to get in the truck with him, then proceeded to drive in the truck an hour away to the oil field with his dead wife's body in the car and his 2 daughters that were still alive. Once they're there, he takes Cece, smothers her with her blanket, then goes up the stairs and drops her body in an oil tank. He walks back to the truck where his little daughter Bella just saw all of this going on. She's crying, she's terrified. Bella asks her dad that she trusts, that she loves, if he was going to do to her what he just did to her sister Cece. He then smothers Bella with her blanket and drops her body off in the oil tank next to her sister. He later says that throughout this whole thing, he looked at them and felt absolutely nothing. He then buried Shannon in a shallow grave that he dug up. As far as information that came to light throughout the investigation, his affair with Nicole, they were fully dating. He would go on dates, go on trips together. They spent a lot of time together. Shanann had been suspicious of an affair. She even texted her friends about how they were having issues and how distant Chris was being. Shanann texted her friends that he wouldn't touch her, he wouldn't kiss her, and he had actually told Shanann that they were not compatible anymore and that he didn't love her anymore. Shanann suggested couples therapy. Chris shut it down immediately and said that he just wasn't happy and he didn't want another baby. At one point, Shanann told her friend that she asked Chris if he was having an affair, and he said no. And Shanann's friend asked her, do you believe him? And she said, honestly, no. November 6th, Chris Watts pleaded guilty. November 19th, he was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, an additional 48 years for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy, and 36 years for 3 charges of tampering with a deceased body. Yeah, I mean, what do you even say to describe this man? Something in his brain is wired severely wrong. I don't know how he could ever forgive himself for any of that. He ruined so many people's lives and it's so horrific and disgusting and just a monster. I love you guys so much. You have no idea. I'm literally obsessed with every single one of you and I would kiss you all on the forehead if I could. I can't thank you all enough for listening to my videos as much as you do. It really means so much to me and I just love you so much. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.